one I wanted. That is not the one I put up there. There's the one I wanted. You know, before this quarter's over, I hope I'll be able to do this one time correctly. Okay, I'm going to close this part of it out, although I will probably show you another film toward the end of our class. And I'm just going to run this as though they are two 1-hour classes. So we'll have a break in between. So let's see if I can pick up everybody who I may have missed earlier. Jason Alvarez.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, see you up there. Let's see, Salvador Badillo, Genesis Barajas.
I'm here. Hi.
Okay, there you are. Augustine Camacho. Diana Centino.
I'm here.
Okay,
here.
in front of the Golden Gate Bridge, huh? Heidi Champagne, I know you were here. And I may skip some names because I already got your mark down. Leslie Corona.
Here.
Oh, good, Leslie. Um, Leonardo Gonzalez. Naomi, saw you up in the corner there. Jessica Courtmeyer, I think I saw her as well. Carson Lennox. Valerie Lopez. And Samuel, at least I get to see you now after all the time that we've been fiddling around. Samuel Morphin. Wendy Solano. Jessica Vasquez. And Sarah Whitesock.
Here.
Okay, good. Okay, I think I've got everybody now. I saw one of the little clips that they said the sermon is not supposed to be spoken, it's supposed to be lived. And that reminded me that a long time ago during World War I, Dr. Albert Schweitzer was, whose name you may know. He was a Nobel Prize winner for his skill with the pipe organ and also as a doctor. And he was working in German, let's see, it would have been West Africa. And he was world renowned. And one time he was asked to come and speak to a group. And when they went to meet him, he came in on the train. And so all of the people who were supposed to meet and greet him went to the first class carriage, the front of the best part of the train to look for him. And they didn't see him. And then they looked down the train and there he was coming out of the second class carriage and helping some lady with her suitcase. And they asked him why he was traveling second class. And he said, because they had no third class. And he went on further to say that sometime before, when the First World War began, and that's when he was active, the British had invaded the German West African colony where he was working. And as he tried to hustle out of town with all of his possessions, he ran into a man who had nothing. And that man volunteered to carry his luggage. And he said, at that time, I made a vow, which I've always kept, that I would never allow anyone who was carrying a burden to carry it alone, that I would always help them. And the people who were there to see him said, I've often heard a sermon preached, but I've never seen it acted out before. So that's kind of what we're expected to do with the way we live our lives, that we don't have to talk about how good we are or what we do. We have to live it. So I hope that's one of the things that you'll be learning as we go through some of the things that we do together here. So I'm ready to start off. Do you have any questions that you want to get answered before we, well, yes, we do have something that we need to do because we have a group that's going to give a presentation today, correct? Team A?
Are none of Team A here?
Well,
Oh
let's see.
dear.
There's Salvador Padillo, he's not here. That's not good. Okay, and Shirley, Shirley Calderon, she's here.
Hi, Professor. I'm here.
Are you?
We didn't prepare any presentation. I didn't know about a presentation.
Well,
Yeah, I think I'm in Shirley's group and I don't remember hearing about.
well, do you know what you're going to present on the next time? Because that's when you will be doing it. Shirley, you got the let's see, did you get the case study that you have to use?
I do. I prepared myself with the case study, but I didn't know about a presentation. And I thought we were going to discuss it as a class.
No, there's, each of you will make a PowerPoint presentation. And is Team B ready to go?
Yeah, we have the presentation.
You're ready to do it, which will be at the top of the next hour.
Yep.
Okay. And just so you understand, Team A, you'll have to do it next week. But one of the things I try and do is line these up as much as I can with what we're talking about. And the presentation, Shirley, that I think you have, do you know what the name of the article is?
Yeah, is it the Harvard study? Should
Yep.
you adjust your business model for a major customer?
No, that's the Lumascape.
Oh,
There's a listing that, and perhaps this is my failing, that I didn't get the list out to you, but I know it's on information.
Yeah, I have the list in front of me.
Okay, and the first one is, can you say what your company strategy is? Got that? Is that the list you have?
Yeah, it says, can you say what your strategy is, February 19th, and then what makes a leader, so on and so forth down the line.
Yeah, so the Team B would be what makes a leader. It's easier to do. It's horribly uncomfortable to do it for be the first person to do it. But it's a lot easier because there's not as high an expectation. So Team B, you get an opportunity to lead the way and have the discomfort, but also the opportunity to set the standard for everybody else. Okay, Team A, I will send you a separate invitation to make sure that you will be ready next week. All right.
so Professor, for next week, Team A has to do our presentation that we were supposed to do this week, or is it a new topic?
No, Blake, what did you say the name of the article was?
Can you say what strategy is? It's an article from Harvard Business Review.
Okay, and there is a list out there with all of those on it.
Yeah, it's under information tabs on Blackboard.
Yeah, you've got to follow up with your stuff on Blackboard. I've spent more time trying to learn how to do Blackboard than I have in preparation for my classes. So,
Okay, thank you, Professor.
okay. All right, so we'll go ahead and take a look at some of the things here. And one of the things that we want to look at is what strategy, and that's why this article is appropriate. What strategy do you want to follow for this game? And as I'd indicated to you 2 or 3 times so far, the one thing about the strategy is once you pick it, that's what you go with. Don't try and swap horses in the middle of the stream. Now, Peter Drucker's defined strategy this way. He said it's the commitment of present resources to future expectations. In another place, he said, your strategic planning is the matter of crawling out on the end of the limb of a tree and cutting off the limb behind yourself. So it involves risk when you do it, and it's making commitments for the future. Now, I came up with a definition of my own, and that was that strategy is a comprehensive plan to achieve a desired long-term outcome using available resources. Now, I thought I liked that definition, incidentally, and I thought it was one of those few things that I did that actually showed I could think of something on my own. But then later I found that same definition in a book. So really all I'd done was just remember and copied it, and I just didn't remember where I got it. But a strategy is supposed to be, a corporate strategy is supposed to be comprehensive in that it covers all aspects of the business. It allows you to work on a long-term basis. Strategies are something that should last at least a couple of years, and ideally, if well done, will last for a generation. And too often what you'll find, and you probably are aware of this in the places where you're currently working, that the boss often gives the strategy of the week, the plan of the week, and everything changes at the end of the week, and you got something new to do. And that's no way to run a business. You can't get people all lined up, walking or marching in the same direction when you're constantly changing the direction. And then as far as using available resources, that's what you have to plan on being able to use, but you also have to anticipate what kind of resources will become available to you. So for example, when you make the commitment to build a factory, what you're going to have to do is borrow money, and that is to give you the resources that are not currently available. Now, Michael Porter says the strategy is developed on multiple levels, and there are three, and we're going to be concentrating primarily in the second of the three. But at corporate level, that's the area of concern of the CEO. That's his sole prerogative, is to set the direction for the company, and it's because he has the high ground. He can see what's going on throughout the company, and therefore he's got to call the shots. But within that is a second level, and this is competitive strategy, and this is what the game is about: how you're going to interact with the marketplace to achieve your corporate strategy. And while the competitive strategy is at a lower level than the corporate strategy, everything that you do in all strategic levels always support the overall corporate strategy. You've got no outliers or free agents that make up their own mind or the direction that they want to go. If you have those kind of people, they'll be separated from their job quickly enough, because the company cannot afford to have people who are out on their own. So with the competitive strategy, when you get your decisions back this evening, you will take a look to see what the other guys are doing. See if you can discern anything that they've made a decision to do from the numbers that you get. And each time you go through this, each round that you have, your ability to understand what's going on will improve. And not just with respect to the game, but your understanding of how things work in the real business environment. So this is the area that is of most importance for the game. And the third area is functional strategies. And this, what happens is, as the corporate plan gets filtered down into the organization, each of the functions of the business is going to have its own strategy, always supportive of the corporate strategy. So there's a marketing strategy, a finance strategy, and a manufacturing or operations strategy in every company. Even if you're doing all service business, the operations part of it is the service that you provide. So, and logically, our marketing and finance are things that are pretty easy to understand as being part of any business. You may also have strategies in other areas of the company that are crucial to the success of the company, but not central to the functioning of the company, like information technology, human resources, and R&D, is three that I have up there. And each of these is supported by a written plan. And it's always, as I said, designed to support the corporate plan. And when I started to work in 1966, when I went to IBM, and we may talk about IBM a little later on today, but when I went to work there in 1966, the first thing they did is they assigned me to a territory, and they gave me an objective, and that was called a quota. And what I had to do was to have a strategy, a written strategy that told the people above me that I was reporting to how I intended to manage that territory, how I was going to deal with competition, what were new account prospects that I have, and what kind of opportunities that I have to grow the business within the existing customers. And this is true, this should be true at any level of a company, that you have this kind of a plan to work on. Now, we're dealing exclusively with the competitive strategy in this game. And Porter says that, she says that competitive strategy, the whole focus of competitive strategy is being different from competitors. Now, you know, the last time we talked about competition to be the best. And what we said about the problem with competition to be the best is that everyone is going to a zero-sum game, that at the end of the day, nobody's going to make a profit. Only people that benefit are going to be the customers and the suppliers. But the company that's working so hard to get its prices, its costs down so it can cut prices, ultimately ends up just getting thrashed to death by the competition. So Porter says what you want to do, instead of going head to head and trying to be the best, what you want to do is to be different. And he says the way you do this is by choosing to perform activities differently or perform different activities. Excuse me. The star beside that says we're going to take a look at those specifically, but sometimes I have difficulty defining or differentiating. As I look at a company, I have trouble differentiating how they're doing things differently, or are they performing different activities? So we'll try and define that a little bit better in the upcoming slides. But the whole purpose of this is to be different or unique, rather than to be matching everybody else in a slow dance to oblivion with nobody making any money. So Porter's principle, and this star up there in the corner means you should be writing this down. His principle is that we don't compete to be the best, we do compete to be unique. And he says that the whole competitive marketplace is about the struggle to make profits. So good competitive strategies are going to result in, and here's another word that he uses, and that we all should be using, is sustainably superior performance to the extent that we maintain our differences. Now, in the Mgmt book, they talk about the bedroom wars, I believe is what they call it. How one of the companies in the hospitality business that owned a bunch of hotels decided to upgrade the quality of the mattresses that they had in their, and I guess the other bedding as well, that they had in their hotel rooms. And this created a competitive advantage for the company that did that, because people would rather sleep in a good bed than one that sags. But the problem was it was not sustainable. And so within a period of about 5 years, all of the other hotel companies changed their bedding out. So at the end of the time, everyone had essentially the same superior quality bedding, And nobody ended up with any long-term advantage, except for the customers. They were the ones that benefited from it.
Well,
But
isn't
not
that the
the companies.
whole?
What's that?
I had a quick question. Isn't the
Sure.
whole point about being different for an extended period of time? Isn't that where patents come into play? Where if you create something, you patent it, that gives you the ability to gain on the idea of being unique or better than your competitor for a certain amount of time.
Yes, that certainly was an advantage of a patent, and we may talk about patents in specific a little bit later on. But we have to come up with ways of just doing business that are not necessarily patentable, that will make it difficult for competitors to match. And before you go home tonight, we'll show you a couple examples of that. Okay? Was that Blake?
Yes.
Okay. Now, the key thing about the idea of having being different, it means that that everyone can be a winner. And clearly the best group I ever had was a few years ago. We had 10 teams, and 8 of those 10 teams ended up with results above 100%. Now, 100% is high as I grade in this class, but you can actually get up to about a score of about 108. But clearly being 100 was really a top drawer performance. The game makers put out a listing, and we began to get this about week 4 or week 5, that shows in the people that are competing right now, and there's probably about 5,000 teams competing right now worldwide. They show you the top 50 and the top 100 in those same measures for customer satisfaction, you know, the return on investment, the stock price and stuff like that. And we had ended up with that particular class where I had 3 games going on at once, each with probably 10 people in it, 10 companies, total of 30 people. We ended up 1 week with 43 of the top 100. So some people were second or third in different areas. It was really a stellar performance, but everybody could be the winner. It was not limited to just being the best. So Porter talks about 3 different approaches to strategy. And what I tell you is pick one and stick with it. Don't try and start with a low-cost provider, which you can see there, and switch a couple rounds into it to a differentiated product, because the low-cost provider is not really working for you at this time. So and then that's a guaranteed way to lose, incidentally, is to swap approaches, to go from one strategy into an entirely different direction. You will be making fine course corrections, but you want to stick with whatever one you select. And Porter says that there are 3 that you could look at: a low-cost provider, which is obvious what that means; a differentiated product, which means in some way your product offering is different from and more appealing than the competitors. Or you can go with a niche focus, which you can do in this game by using a different approach. Select your approach to use in each region. So you may use say a low-cost, low-price focus in Latin America, where there's a lot of people who don't have shoes but not a lot of money, and go with a high-price differentiated product in Europe, Africa, where people do have money and where they may need 2 or 3 pairs of shoes and they can afford them. So there are all kinds of, as I say there at the bottom, there are all kinds of tweaks that can be made in each of these approaches. So at this point, I'm going to ask what your opinions are and what maybe you all have. Daggone it, I did the wrong thing again. What kind of opinions you have about how you're going to approach the market.
I think a good approach would be the differentiated product, because then there's more leeway for, you're not a super low cost provider, so you can probably tweak the prices a little bit more instead of being pigeonholed into like a low cost provider and going
Okay.
down that strategy.
Good. Well, and what but before you go home tonight, I'll show you examples of differentiated products and how you could go about implementing that. Anyone else have any thoughts on this?
I think we're all being so quiet because you don't want to give away our strategy.
Well, you know, it's one thing that I've learned over the years. You could give away your business plan because it's one thing to write it. It's another thing to try and do it. And actually executing is a lot different, a lot more difficult than putting on paper. And you, of course, after in this case, you can go 2 rounds and now you go back to 0. You could change your strategy if you learn something in the trials. But once that thing starts going, just keep with that, with whatever one you got. And the more effective you are in following that, the more likely you are to have the really high score. Okay, well, we'll go on here then. Go back on. So there's one other one that's a very common, that is a common strategy, and this is called a best cost. And what the strategist tries to do there is to have low cost and differentiation. So there are ways you can beat down your costs to keep them low and still make a quality product. And at the same time, there's ways you can differentiate, that is, make something different about your product to make it more attractive. But Porter says he thinks this is a weak position, because what happens is, as a low-cost provider trying to differentiate as well, other low-cost providers are going to be able to have a way of developing lower costs than you do. And they'll chip away at you at one end with their lower costs. And at the same time, other competitors who have a differentiated product will attempt to, because they're focused entirely on differentiation, they probably have more flexibility and getting extra value as they provide their product. And so they can chip away at your position because they've got superior differentiation attributes.
All right, this is that straddling that was talked about.
I'm sorry?
This is that straddling that was talked about in voice strategy. We're trying to do the best of both.
It's in a way it is, but it is a very conscious thing. And what we're going to see in the bottom line there, Blue Ocean strategy, which is developed by Chan Kim and Renee Milbourne over in France, relies on using best cost. So they've got some ideas of how you can protect yourself rather than being weak in the position of having both low cost and differentiation. They show how you can set up a barrier to protect your position. And we're going to look at that about week 12 of this class. But we will talk about specifically about straddling, which is an interesting idea. And I usually use a guy coming down the hill on his skis. When the skis start going apart, that's what it's like to straddle. And eventually it just pulls you apart at the crotch as you get too far along with your skis spread out. Well, one thing and here's another star up in the corner. One thing is true of all the approaches is what you want to do is give the lowest acceptable quality and performance in your product, even though this goes against everything that you learned in marketing. And the reason I'm going to ask you, why would you want to do that? Why would that be a sound strategic step?
It would give the consumer a reason to continue purchasing, right?
Well, we want to give them a reason to purchase, but if we give him the least acceptable product, why would he want to continue to purchase?
Oh, because then you can do like models on top, like how they do for like automobiles, how they sell like let's say the basic, and then they start going above.
Okay, and what is the guy who is going to buy the basic? What does he need? What's his primary criteria?
Just a car to get him from point A to point B.
Yeah, this is the first customer when I was with IBM. The first customer I called on was a company called Duro Paper Bag, and they make all the bags that you get at the grocery store, the paper ones anyhow.
Mm-hmm.
And the treasurer of the company, when I first met him, said, "You need to understand, I sing like the birdies sing, cheap, cheap, cheap." So he was quite clear as to what he was looking for in his purchasing decision. Well, it didn't even bother me. It didn't even faze me because IBM at that time worked off of a fixed price schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And if you didn't like it, you don't buy. But I'm not going to cut the price to get the deal. I did that later, but not with IBM. But that's what the customer's going to look for. They want something cheap to meet their basic needs.
Yeah.
And if you aren't able to offer that, what happens? What besides you take a walk, but what does it do in that relationship? What does the buyer think if they can't get it cheap?
And they wouldn't be able to buy it at a higher price either. No, if they can't get it cheap, then I would assume they wouldn't be able to get it at a higher price.
Well, sometimes people
More
are
so-
willing to pay the higher price.
Oh, okay, like those people in general.
Yeah.
More so, it's more of a luxury item in that
Yeah.
case, or that it signals status, I guess is the correct way to put it.
Well, what happens, and these are terms we'll get into in more detail when we read the Christensen book. He talks about the job to be done, and what he says, what we do when we buy a product, we're not doing it just because we have a particular need, but he said there's a special task, or there normally is a task or thing that we're trying to accomplish, and what we're looking for is the best solution for that. And he says that what happens too often is the only things that are available have more, they're like my more expensive, get it out here, Swiss Army knife. I've got two of them here. I got one that will really work okay for normal situations, and another much fatter one that I could use to show how well tooled I am. But ordinarily people, if they only have one choice, they're going to have to pay extra for things they don't need. Actually, Swiss Army knife does have one unit that has 137 tools in it. It's about this long, if you can see how I've held my hands. It's about 13, 14 inches long, and it's $1,300, but it's not really very functional. But I don't want to buy that if all I need is a penknife. So that's why we want to cut down the things so that people don't have to pay for stuff they don't need. And correspondingly, they can get it cheap enough to satisfy their basic need. So the answer to the question why is because we don't want to increase the cost and the price and giving the customer something he doesn't need and doesn't want to pay for. Now, so what you want to do is to skinny your product down and only offer the features that the customer wants and eliminate all others. This is done as a general practice. So if you're going with a differentiated product for your shoes, for example, there you're going to want to go with more features and benefits for the customer. But if you're going with a low cost, low price strategy, you may want to eliminate things that you don't think the customer needs or would be wanting to pay for. And the way you make this adjustment to get the right features is through your marketing mix. Now, I get the impression from having used that term in a couple other classes that people were not aware what that meant. Does anyone here know what a marketing mix is?
Product, price, promotion, placement.
Okay, is that Blake again?
Yeah, one of my other classes is marketing, and we go over that.
And that's you can pretty well fit all the marketing functions in there. The product is what you're selling, and you can adjust that. The place is how you do the distribution. Are you going to go direct, as you will be with your internet product? Or will you be going through a dealer? Or will you be using a private label buyer who'll put their own label on your shoes and sell them to the public? The promotion involves the salesman, advertising, true promotion, and everything that makes the product known to the customer. And then price is your final tool. Now, a few years ago, I used a case for a company that you all are totally unfamiliar with. It's called Church and Dwight. Do any of you know what they make? Statistically, 95% of the people I would talk with have a Church and Dwight product in their pantry. They make Arm & Hammer baking soda.
Oh.
And I would suspect everybody knows at least what that is, and probably you got it on your shelf at home. And one of the other products they could use the baking soda, incidentally, in detergents, and they have a thing called USA detergent that is about the number 3 or number 4 seller in the United States. And probably none of you have ever heard of USA detergent. But what they've done is, in their marketing mix, they've cut the price to the bone. They do very little advertising. They accept being on the bottom shelf at the grocery store with their product. And what they try and do is, in their marketing mix, rely on low price as a way to reach the customer. By contrast, you take Procter & Gamble, they're all up on the high shelf with Tide and Cheer and other laundry detergents that they have, with their fluorescent boxes that glow in the dark and that are much more expensive. But they spend their money, Procter & Gamble does, on their advertising portion and not on price. But you only got so many dollars you can spend. It's up to you to determine how you're going to spend it. So understand that if you reduce a price, it automatically increases volume. And if you want to be able to reduce your price, you got to have lower costs. And the way you do that is to run as close to capacity as possible. Now, the other 4 teams that I'm working with have already had their first decision. In fact, they're doing their second one now. And one of the things that is appears to be common with most everyone is they immediately went into private label sales. Now, I'm going to ask a question here, so I'm going to shut this down. When would you want to go into private label selling?
When you want to flood the market.
Okay, but in this strategic game now, is this going to be a linchpin for how you operate? Or
It depends. Obviously, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
If you want to be the lowest cost seller, obviously one of the ways you can do that is by flooding the market with your product and then raising the price later on in the years.
Okay, now Ryan, tell me what the characteristics are for this game for the private label buyer. Who are they? What do they want? What do they insist on getting to be
So
your customer?
obviously low price. You need to have it. It doesn't need to be low, but it needs to be below what they're willing in order to pay. You obviously need to sell at a certain volume in order so that way they can make their money, and then you need to have a certain SQ rating,
Yeah.
the quality.
Yeah.
Did I miss anything?
The middle part of it there, the amount that you offer to them, as long as 100,000 pairs or more, they're
Right.
really happy to buy. If your price is right and your quality is okay. So there's a way you can determine in the instructions tell you you can determine what they're going to pay or willing to pay. It's about 85, between 83 and 85% of the price that you sell to your wholesalers
Mhm.
or your dealers. So that gives them, if they buy at least a 15% discount from what the dealers are paying, it gives them an opportunity to put some marketing dollars behind the product and still sell it and make a mark on it, make a margin.
Very true.
Yeah, and so as far as quality is concerned, they want to be equal to what a good pair of shoes from your regular dealer. If the regular dealer is selling your product, they want to have a product comparable to that.
Mhm.
Now, and I hope you're taking notes on this because there's absolutely no loyalty in this. It's love them and leave them. It's a whore's market. You can sell one round and they'll buy all you got if you meet those two criteria. In the next round, you can desert them entirely and there's no hard feelings. And correspondingly, they'll buy from you if your price is low and your quality is good. And if you're not the best, if you're not the lowest and best, they won't buy from you. There's no loyalty on their part.
Did their
So-
requirement change as the game goes on?
Yes, because your quality is going to go up as time goes by, and so they got to keep they keep wanting to raise their quality as well, and your prices are probably going to go down.
Like I thought it started at wanted at least 3 stars and then over like 1,000, like it's at 1,000 pairs, but I actually think it's 1,000,000 because everything's
Yeah.
at 1,000 block.
Yeah, it'll probably get up to 5, maybe 6. You're not trying to sell the Cadillac of gym shoes to that market.
No.
But you've got to be competitive, and they give you a criteria that they're using each round. So it's not as though you have to go in blind. But ideally what you'll do is only sell that to the extent that you can't fill up your factory with first line merchandise. So ideally to get as close to to get the best costs, you've got to run close to capacity. And you can run close to capacity by getting a good aggressive marketing plan. And at the same time, you can, well, you can't schedule production just in the abstract. You have to have a sales forecast to work from. But ideally what you would do is be able to run at a 120% of capacity. You can go 20% over with overtime, and that's profitable to do. Obviously, you have to have some idea that you're going to sell all that you make in order to be running that high. But the place to get the private label is for the difference between what your sales department forecasts as your requirements will be and 120%. So if the orders that are put out on the floor are going to give you equivalent to 80%, you want to get another 80 plus 20 plus 20, you'll do that with your private label. But recognize when you do this, that the game automatically services your internet customers first, the private label second, and your dealers who are your bread and butter third. So what you're going to see is a lot of times you're going to see those yellow marks that I've talked to you about, I think, in previously, where you're where this indicates. Oh, I got something from Hong Kong. Happy New Year from a girl from Hong Kong. That distracted me for the moment.
Professor, I'm sorry. Can you repeat the steps one more time?
Yeah, if I could remember where I was.
Oh,
Was that what you
I
want
know
to
you,
do? You want to
I know you
service?
said yes.
Go ahead. You want to service your the customers that are always with you first. However, the game says we're going to handle the internet sales first. And that, of course, that's an immediate sale. I mean, you get the phone order and you got to ship out the next day. We'll service the private label second because you're under contract for that. And then if there's any product left over, it goes to the dealers. Well, you're always going to have product left over, but maybe not enough to meet the full dealer's requirement. And when that happens, you'll see those yellow marks that were on the private label. Or not the private label, but the competitive efforts report, which we'll look at before you get out of here. So think about selling private label as the excess to fill your factory, not as a baseline product. And you're probably talking about a $20 difference. So if you sell to private label, you might be at $32, $33 a pair. If you sell to your wholesale dealers, you're probably selling at $52, $53 a pair. So just recognize that you're giving away 20 bucks, particularly if you see those yellow marks that said, hey, I couldn't even meet my dealer demand. And what I did was sold it to the private label people instead. Okay. We all together now?
Makes sense so far.
Okay. So try to run close to capacity. The way to do that is sell your excess in the private label market. And we already discussed this, so I don't need to go back to you at this point. So what is a low cost provider? This is someone who is able to achieve meaningful, permanent lower costs. It's not just a price cutter. Price cutters do no good because they can't stay in business long term. So you always have to make sure you match your cut in prices with a cost cut so that you always will be able to maintain your margins. Now here's some specifics of a low cost strategy that would apply to the game. And this is where I get a little confused between the difference between doing things differently and doing different things. But one of the things you do is try and control your cost drivers. And in the game, and every place you see a red star here on this slide, is something you can do with the game. Scale economies. This says the bigger your factory, and the higher your capacity utilization, the lower your cost. Now I can give you an example of that. Supposing you had a factory, you could produce 1 million pairs of shoes in it. And it costs $1 million to run for the year. That is just to have the factory there and the security people and the people that kept the building clean, even before you put any production in there. It was $1 million a year. And you were able to sell 1 million pairs of shoes out of that factory. How much allocation of cost would you have to put on every pair of shoes? And this is an easy question because they get tougher with the next one.
So it should be about $1 per shoe.
Yeah, that's right. So if you're running at that full capacity, making 1 million shoes, and got $1 million cost, it's $1 a pair. Now suppose you're just starting up and all you can run is 100,000 pairs in that factory. What's going to be the allocation of overhead for those shoes?
$10 per shoe.
Right. And who was that?
That was Genesis.
Okay, Jennifer, that's exactly right.
Genesis,
Huh?
not Jennifer, Genesis. That happens all the
Genesis,
time.
okay. My daughter's name is Jennifer,
Okay.
and she's got a birthday this next week.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Now, you won't believe this, and she's a wonderful young lady, but she's going to be 56. Probably didn't know. Probably didn't know I was that old.
That experienced, not old, right?
I wish. So, but thank you very much. You get extra stars for that, Genesis.
Oh, thanks.
So you have the opportunity to use these scale economies, and what you do is you have a $9 cost advantage that you could give part of that to the customer in terms of a lower price and still maintain your margin. The second thing that you got is the experience curve, and this is something that's been studied for about 60 years over dozens of industries and hundreds of companies, that when the volume of an industry doubles, the cost for their product goes down 20 to 30%. And then from that new base, if the volume doubles again, the costs drop another 20, 30%, and it keeps repeating itself. So I said I'd tell you more about IBM, but when I was at IBM, a big computer was about $2 million. And there were probably a dozen, maybe 15 companies that could buy one. But because of this experience curve, what happened is over time, that price dropped to 200,000 with what they called a mini computer. And 10 years later, it dropped from 200,000 to $2,000 for the computers that you have there in your home office. And then another 10 years, and it dropped down to $200 for an inexpensive smartphone. That's the power of the experience curve. Now you can do that as your volume goes up. You can also get into labor saving operating methods. Again, there's a star with each of them. Those labor saving methods include best practices and employee training, and they will pay off. Then you can do supply chain efficiency. This is something else where you can do something differently. You're going to be producing in Asia Pacific. You can ship product to Latin America. But if you ship product to Latin America, there's duty on the product. So instead, to get a better efficiency, what you may do is produce in Asia Pacific, ship the product to North America where there is no duty, at least not prior to Trump, where there was no duty, and then have the North American operation produce product and ship it down to Latin America because we have a trade-free zone with Latin America. So you can, it's kind of an end around, but you can end up improving your supply chain efficiency. And then you can substitute low cost for high cost raw materials. And tonight, this afternoon, as you're kind of finishing up on your approach, you'll probably twiddle around with changing the mix between low cost and high cost raw materials. You can make a great shoe with low cost materials. You can make a crummy shoe with high cost materials. The cost for low cost materials is obviously lower than high cost materials, but if everybody starts buying low cost materials, the low cost provider will raise their price because they're running full. They can afford to do it. And in the meantime, the high cost material supplier will start cutting his price because he's got to keep his plant full. But you can twiddle with that, and this will allow you a little more way to address the market. Now, the prior example, I said do things differently. The other thing we can do is do different things. And this is where you bypass cost producing activities that customers don't want to pay for. Now, what I just told you about the end around coming out of Asia is really addressed by this reducing cost producing activities. So, but I had to put each of these someplace. So that's, I put that one, the one about shipping from Asia in the doing things differently. Here's something where you do different things, and this is direct end user sales. That's your internet. And this is something obviously you can do with the game. Can you remember what percentage your internet sales are currently?
15%.
Yeah. So you start off with 15% and it'll naturally grow, whether you get involved in internet sales or not, up to about 20% during the course of the game. And you can drive that faster and farther if you choose to go in a direction of pushing that part of your business. You can relocate closer to suppliers or customers. This is where you make the decision, okay, we're going to put a factory in Latin America. And that way it'll be closer to my customers. Or we can store more material in our warehouse. When you, in this game, when you make product, you end up shipping it, not to an end user or the final customer, but you ship it to a warehouse location and then it's distributed from there. And so you'll find, because you've got to account for every shoe that you make, you've got to ship it someplace. You're going to find that a lot of times you will be producing in Asia Pacific and selling in North America, even though you got a factory in North America. But you'll see that as you try and balance this out and make sure that every pair of shoes gets out of the factory. You can also go with no frills product or service. You can't do that with this game. And let's see, it was it Lewis that talked about the cheap cars? No, it was not Lewis. It was Herman. Didn't you talk about
Yeah.
the cars, the different types of cars?
Yeah.
Okay. And this is this no frills product or service. There's some customers that know so much about the product that they're buying, you don't need to give them any service. Just give me the product, give me the price.
Mhm.
Other people are not so sophisticated and they need to have a lot of help. So we can adjust the way we do business with the various people. But you can't do it with the game here. And then you can go with a limited versus a full product line. You can run between 50 and 500 model styles. And probably the sweet spot is someplace between, say, 150 and 300. Now you understand, I think you do understand that salesmen like a broad product line because they can sell more stuff.
Yes.
But that also jams up the production line. So production hates broad product line. They want a narrow product line because every time they change model styles, it means that they got to do a setup change on their equipment. Every time there's a setup change, there's lost production because you can't charge out downtime while you're changing the machine over. And there's always scrap that's left over every time you make a change. So you've got these two, and this is a real life thing that there's always a dynamic tension between manufacturing and sales. Now, low cost leadership means low overall cost and not just low manufacturing or production costs. And it definitely doesn't mean giving unsustainable discounts, because that'll put you out of business. And understand, if you may not even get to buy a celebrity in these first two rounds. But if you buy a celebrity, you got to keep on advertising, or you got to keep advertising that celebrity so people will know about it. But in a low price environment, you have to keep investing in advertising, dealer incentives, and everything else just to maintain your dealer network. So you can't say, well, we've cut 10% on our manufacturing costs. Let's cut 10% on our marketing costs to go with that. You can't do that. You can do it, but it's a fool's errand. And what you're trying to do is to create differences that are difficult for anyone to match. And you can do that with your marketing mix. Over time, you will develop, over the decisions, you'll develop a unique place to be in. Now, I'm going to go 2 more slides and then we'll take a break. What do you do with the cost savings? If you have come up with ways to reduce your costs, there's 2 things you can do. You can pass those through to the customers with lower prices. And that's typically what you do. And this increases volume because people will buy more if the price is lower. But it also discourages competition because if you bought down your costs, the new guy who comes in is not got to face a lower price for the product. This is a new entrant in the market, has to face a lower price for the product. And he's got to work out a way to get his costs down so that he can compete head to head with you. Alternatively, you can retain the savings and not drop your price when you get a cost reduction. And if you do that, then what happens is your volume will probably remain the same, but your margins per unit go up. But the problem there is it attracts competition because, hey, they say, wow, this guy has been able to cut his costs and he's able to sell. Maybe this will give us some run room so we can try and cut our costs and compete with him head to head without damaging ourselves in the process. So that's what you have to face. So my question for you all is, which will you do?
I'd probably lower the price. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say the same thing. To lower, the first option would be to pass through the customers with lower prices because it will increase our volume and discourage competition, which is what we want.
You know, the industry I was in was a paper industry, and about 15 years ago, they came up with a new formulation for making paper where they could get the same strength using less fiber. And of course, fiber is the main constituent. Those people did, they saved them about 10% in cost on their product. And I bet you 95% of the people who were selling the product gave all of that savings to their customers. It was stupid. But what are you going to do? If everyone else does it, if you're going to be competitive, you kind of have to match the price and find some other place to reduce your costs.
The other alternative is that if a competitor can cut more costs than you can, obviously, then all of a sudden you're out of the market rather than them.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, we had a supplier one time. We had a small producing facility that had we brought out of bankruptcy and began running.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy, when he came out to see me, we were having some conversations. He said, the problem with you guys is we can't get the stake through your heart. These paper bills keep shutting down, but then somebody comes along and revives them and put them back into business. So yeah, you can get put out of business, but you can come back, arise from the dead. Well, this is a time to take a break. So if you want to take about a 5-minute break, and can Company B be prepared to make their presentation?
Professor,
Yes.
I came in late because of internet issues.
Yeah. So let's see. Don't tell me because I'm going to find you even with just your first name. Linux, Carson
right.
Lennox. All right, good. And my name, incidentally, is Bill. Even if it's uncomfortable to say.
Good to know.
I find it super uncomfortable. I think it's like, so yeah, I think in Spanish too, you're not supposed to talk to people who are older than you in like a really casual way. So when I hear call me Bill, I feel like, oh, I could never, like, I don't know. It's weird.
Well, my father spent a lot of time in Spain. He had a factory over there. And he said that they would call him Don Ohu. Break the name apart to give him an honorific of Don, and then just use the last 4 letters of the name with him. So, but I like the informality. At the same time, I realize there's got to be some distance. I have to make sure I can discipline and make demands, but I also want to keep things conversational. So could you live with that, Genesis?
Could I what? Sorry?
I say, can you live with that casualness?
I can.
Okay. So it's right now, it's 22 after. Why don't we start again at 27 after?
Sounds good.
Now, this was a WeChat from Hong Kong that I got.
How's
And
she doing, by the way?
huh?
How's she doing, by the way?
I think okay. I have there's another student that I had in in what was the equivalent of this class about 5 years ago. Brilliant young lady, and she went to Canada and got her master's degree, and then went to work in Edmonton, and then um, ended up going back home to Hong Kong. She wanted to get some additional uh, educational training. And she said it was pretty bad. She said she had to go, her family lives in Shenzhen, which is across the bay on the mainland side.
Right.
And so all she could do was commute on weekends to go to class.
Gotcha.
But
Well, hopefully things turn out for her all right.
what's that?
So hopefully things turn out for her all right.
And I still didn't hear you. Something I heard the all right, but
Hopefully things turned out all right for her.
oh yeah, she's a very bright girl, and I'm sure that she'll do very well.
Good.
As will this other young lady. This other young lady was at Azusa Pacific, and I had her for a class there. So, and she got COVIDized. She left early before the end of the semester to get home. A lot of kids were stuck here, you know.
I can fully agree with that, or sympathize with that rather.
Let's see if we can finish up our bathroom break. We'll get another cup of coffee and get started again so we can get you out of here on time.
What else were you hoping to cover tonight? The rest is PowerPoint, obviously. Anything else?
And I'm Ryan, I'm having some trouble hearing you.
Oh dear, I'm sorry for that.
Well,
Is there anything else that you wanted to cover besides the
Yeah.
PowerPoint?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to look at differentiation. And that's it. Just so you have both different ideas.
Okay.
Nervous, Stephanie?
Yeah.
And Genesis, that's part of the reason that I like to be informal, because I don't want people to be nervous.
When we do the assignment, do you want it to submit it somewhere on Blackboard so you have something to grade, or is it just something we do in class?
For these presentations, I've got a grading form that I could use. There's certain things that I'll be looking for. And as I said, I'll be generous with the first group because they don't have anything to work from. And let's see, Heidi is on that group, and Leslie. So whenever you're ready to go. And what is your article called?
What makes a leader by Daniel Goleman.
Yeah, this is a very hot topic. So there's much learning that can be done in that article. Incidentally, these articles are all available free online. And I've gone through and selected ones I think are particularly good. And you all might just choose to get copies for yourself for your own personal library, because it'd be valuable to you later on in business. So take it away, kids.
Okay. Can everyone see that?
Very good.
All good.
Okay, welcome class. Today, Leslie, Stephanie, and I will be sharing the highlights of Daniel Goleman's article, What Makes a Leader? Next slide, please. IQ is important, but how important is it? A high IQ will help you to absorb new information and master skills. But according to the article, What Makes a Leader, it's only half of what you will need to be an effective leader. Goleman argues that you need emotional intelligence as well as truly effective as well. Truly effective leaders are also distinguished by a high level of emotional intelligence, which includes self-awareness, empathy, motivation, self-regulation, and social skills. Today, we will be talking about self-awareness, the primary factor. And with that, here's Leslie with self-awareness.
Okay, so one of the things people with high self-awareness are able to do is speak openly. For instance, speaking on their emotions and the impacts they could potentially cause. For example, not feeling passionate about a project, speaking to colleagues about your doubts could help identify the issues one may be feeling and come up with solutions. Also, it is also important that we are honest with ourselves as well as with others. One of the hallmarks of self-awareness is self-deprecating humor. For example, getting asked during an interview about a time you did something you regretted, something you could look back at and laugh about. And I'll turn things to Stephanie now.
Another important part of self-awareness is a deep understanding of your own emotions and the emotions around you. Your emotions can also directly influence the emotions of your coworkers. Something important that you also have to understand are your strengths, your weaknesses, your needs, and your drives. Knowing these things will help you become motivated in a project that you're not so passionate about. Another important thing is being self-confident. You need self-confidence to know what you're capable of and your limitations. Knowing your limitations will help you know when to ask for help. And then another thing of self-confidence is to be able to take constructive criticism. That's just beneficial for everything for your future. And then an example using these two would be you getting a job offer, high-paying job offer, and you have the deep understanding and self-confidence to reject it because it doesn't follow your principles or your goals. Self-awareness is just one component of the 5 components that make up emotional intelligence. I highly recommend reading What It Takes to Be a Leader by Daniel Goleman to learn the other 4, and so you can become an effective leader. That's it.
Okay. Very good. Let's see, Heidi, I didn't hear you involved with this. Heidi?
Yeah, I was the first speaker.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, I
And,
did the first 2 slides.
All right, you sound a lot like Stephanie, but that's great. So I want to make some comments about this. You did something that I really like. You had 5 things that you could have wasted your time on, and you picked one. And you know the objective here is you pick the one, and then say, if you like what we told you about this one, the other 4 will be interesting to you too. Get your own copy of it and read it, because there's so much meat in each of these articles that you can get caught up in the weeds. You had the purpose of your paper was of your talk was obvious. You had everyone involved. I didn't recognize Heidi's voice there at first, and I apologize. You had very few words on the slide, and the slide is a kind of a crutch to help you through, help maybe people to focus on what it is you're talking about. But the rule that they have is try and do it 440. Never more than 4 lines of information, never more than 40 total words. Otherwise, you get into the weeds. Everyone spoke loudly enough to hear. You followed a logical sequence. There was smooth passing of the baton from one speaker to the next, which is excellent. It's quite obvious that you didn't have notes. Notes tend to slow you down. So you were speaking from your knowledge rather than from a piece of paper. And that is very important. Now, Leslie, what are you thinking here? Are you going to say that you had some notes?
Just a little bit, because I get nervous and
I couldn't tell it. I couldn't tell it. And that's what you want to do, is you don't want to be stiff as you read something. Now, this is a brand new book. I'm going to enlarge myself here. Speaker's view. I get to see Stephanie. How do I get to see myself? I don't know how to, I enjoy watching you, but I wanted to show other people me, so I don't know how to get theirs.
If you go to the picture of yourself at the top right, there should be 3 dots, and one of the
There we
options should
go.
be pin.
Okay. There I am. Thank you, Stephanie. But this is a book called The War for Kindness, and this has gotten a lot of publicity, and it's one of the things that they talk about in the Goldman article, is how important empathy is as being an effective leader. And the subtitle on this is Building Empathy in a Fractured World. And I started to read it, and it's pretty interesting. So I point that out to you as another thing that you might want to use to heighten your knowledge. And that's the reason that we're here, is to learn stuff so that we can use it to be successful. So that was
Professor, I don't know if you knew, but I think he made like an updated article. Heidi found the interview for it, and he goes on with 3 different empathies, but I don't quite remember them. But Heidi,
this is Goldman.
yeah.
And what, Heidi, what was it called? Do you?
Okay. So the article is actually called, I guess it was an interview. It's What Makes a Leader. And it's in the Business and Leadership website. And I actually thought this was the main article. And then Stephanie found the actual like long article. And so we went over that. But so he had empathy. There is, let's see, cognitive empathy. There's emotional empathy, and let's see.
So the book is called Leadership, The Power of Emotional Intelligence, and it was published in 2020.
Okay.
It's an actual book, not an article.
There's the
Yeah,
article.
sorry.
Yeah. Well, this, as I said, this is really a hot topic in business management today. And one of the upcoming articles talks about level 5 leadership, and that all deals with the human side. You got that one, Ryan, huh? It deals with the human side of being a leader, and it's you've got to have a way to connect with people. So, and that's one of the reasons for me to be informal, really. So let's take a look and see. I've got about 10 minutes more to work, and that was an excellent start for us. And I'm going to give you one tip that all of you can use. That you use this when you're writing a term paper, and you want to use it in any kind of a speaking engagement you have. You tell them what you're going to tell them. You tell them, and then tell them what you told them. Because people never remember what you say. So when you're writing a term paper, the first part of it is the executive summary. That's what you tell them, what you're going to tell them. You got the body of the paper. That's what you tell them, and then you've got the conclusion where you wrap it up and tell them what you told them. So this is a strong way to get emphasis on any kind of a presentation that you make. So I wish I'd have told you that beforehand to make it a little bit easier to use that. But the job you did was excellent, and it's really setting us up for a lot of people to in this class to have to follow you and see if they can match your performance. Thank you. We just have a few minutes left. And I want to tell you some places where you could use low cost, low price. And there's 4 of them here. The first 4 that I have listed here are all pretty much variations on the same thing. If you got a homogeneous product, supposing you were selling gravel for a construction site, how are you going to tell a difference between one company's gravel and another? If you've got an area where price competition is vigorous, everybody's carrying the same product and they're going to offer it at the same price. Where you've got a standard product with many suppliers, again, that ends up becoming a price war where you got a lot of suppliers out there. And where most buyers use the product in the same way, again, it's very difficult to establish a difference that makes one better than the other. And it's very tough then to go on anything other than low cost, low price. Now, the bottom three have the stars by them, and these are things that you do you could do in the game, and it's also part of what's called the 5 forces. And so I'm going to give you an updated list of when we're going to do everything in the remainder of the class. And that's something that's always a moving target, because if we go too slow, we have to take extra days to accomplish what I want to accomplish. And I could care less if it takes extra days, because I'm interested in giving you things that you could remember. And if it takes longer to be able to remember them, then we won't get as much done. But whatever we do get done, you'll be able to remember. So the first of those is low switching cost. Now, if you go down to in a large part of the cities around here, you can find a corner where there's 4 gas stations on at the stoplight where there's a cross streets. And the only difference is going to be a couple of pennies in the price of their gas. And the cost of switching from your Union 76 to the Chevron down on University Avenue is just a matter of making a U-turn and going from one place to the other. Other times, though, the switching costs can be quite high. You can maybe make a note that we need to talk about what Apple had to do to get their product updated. And it was the kind of thing where they had to make significant changes in the way they operated to get the advantage of using a cheaper or more capable chip in their equipment. So a lot of times when you switch from one product to another, it isn't the cost of the product that really is the high cost. It's the cost of doing the training, or the cost of refurbishing an office, for example, that is the switching cost from one product to another. We'll look at that specifically later. If you've got buyers who have a lot of buying power, this is Walmart. Walmart, if you want to sell to Walmart, you've got to match the price that they ask you to match. But they'll give you a lot of business if you can do that. And then if you've got a situation where people want to buy, and you create a bridgehead to move into a new market. The last 3 or 4 years, we've seen Five Guys hamburger joints. And when they come in, if they open a store, they're going to have a grand opening sale where they'll have reduced prices. And that frequently is the way people do it, that they buy in with a lower cost. And if you're the incumbent, the one that's already there, you've got to be prepared to be able to match those prices in order to maintain your position. So that means you got to have low cost. Now let's talk about, in relationship to that, let's talk about Southwest, and this will be probably one of the last things we'll be able to do. What do you know about Southwest that allows them to be so super cheap?
No assigned seats.
Huh?
No assigned seats. Everyone just buy the ticket and you just go wherever you can.
Yeah, so and that pays off in 2 ways. It means you can get more people on the plane because you don't have those large, well, it wouldn't necessarily be assigned seating, but if you have a first class section, you're not going to get as many people on. If you have no assigned seats, a super big advantage, which when you think about it, 2 or 3 weeks from now, when we do Southwest Airlines as a case study, a super big advantage for them is they can load the plane quicker. And one of the characteristics of Southwest, of all airlines, as a matter of fact, is you only make money when you're flying. You don't make money when you're sitting on the ground. So anything they could do to increase flight time is money in their pocket. Can you think of anything else that they do that might allow them to be distinguished?
I know
Same
they,
amount of
oh.
bags. Two people talking.
All right,
That's great.
I'll stop. Go, you go, you go.
I was just gonna say,
Go ahead. Nope, just kidding.
certain number of bags fly free, and then Diana and Herman.
Okay, who's going first here?
Diana, you can go. You can go.
You gotta let Ryan go first?
He already said it. It's the pay for a bag. So
The free bags?
Certain number of bags fly free, yeah.
Okay, now that one is very significant. Do you know why they do that?
To attract a certain number of bags, if people carry more on, then they have to pay more.
Well,
So
if you can get two bags for free on Southwest, I think.
Mm-hmm.
What do you have to do to get the bag on the plane?
You have to check it in at the front desk. Or no, you're talking about for
You
the
carry it.
handbags.
You carry
Yep.
it yourself, and you don't have to pay staff to carry it onto the plane.
Yes. Now, if it turns out that there's no room in the overhead compartment, of course, they'll put it on the underbelly and you get it's the first one off the plane. So it's pretty convenient, but you got to carry it out there to the plane. So I'll give it to you for free, but you got to do your own carrying, and I can't have the bellhop bring it out for you. So why would they do this? Why doesn't everybody just say, fine, we're going to match Southwest, we'll give them free bags?
Possibly can't afford the space or the weight capacity.
They don't have the business plan to support the random change in approach.
Okay, you're getting a little bit closer. Can anyone think of anything else? I'll give you the answer. All right, I'll tell you the answer, and mark this down because this will come up again in our conversation with Southwest. That what they have is Southwest flies their own, they're their own people, so they don't have any arrangements to deal with the other airlines. And one of the things where the airlines cooperate is interline transfer. So if I fly from Delta to New York out to Los Angeles, and then hop on a short flight that goes up to Santa Clara from Los Angeles, and it's Delta out to LA, and then United from LA to Santa Clara, somebody takes those bags off the Delta and puts it onto the American, so I don't have to worry about it until I get to Santa Clara. And what they have is they have an arrangement where they pay, where Delta or United in this case would pay Delta to move that baggage from the one flight to the other. So Southwest doesn't do that. So they have, in fact, if you were to be on that same arrangement and you flew Delta from New York to LA, and then you're going to grab a Southwest flight to Santa Clara, you'd have to go down to the carousel and get your own bag. So it's an inconvenience. You get to control your bag, you can feel better about that. But they say in exchange for that, we'll give you the free bag. And why do we do that? Because we don't have to pay the interline fee to the other guys. And so this means they can cut their costs. And United and Delta can't match that. This is a very simple thing that United and Delta can't afford to give you the free bag because they're still going to have to pay for the interline transfer. So it's a simple thing, but it's a thing that the competition can't match. They can't do. Their costs would go up if they tried to match it. Can you see that? This is the best of all circumstances where you've got something that the other guys can't do without damaging their bottom line. You got that?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Ryan, for helping me out there. Make sure that I make something stick for you. Let's see if we've got anything else. Differentiation, creating a tangible or intangible benefit for the customer. Sometimes it doesn't cost you anything at all to do. If Oprah decides to have your stupid book on her book club, all of a sudden you'll be a bestseller. And I'm sure that Oprah gets a little something for doing that, but there's really no increase in cost. Sometimes it'll allow you to do a price increase, sometimes not. So what we're going to try and do is do something where you can create a competitive advantage that's not easily matched nor easily copied or cheaply copied. That is not the case with Southwest. They're strictly low cost, low price. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to let you, I'll put these slides all out for you so you can take a look and see what some of the themes are that people use. And I'm going to skip through this too. I like that slide. Why is Starbucks able to sell for a premium that they have?
The convenience of not having to make your own coffee.
But what are they selling coffee?
No, they're selling an experience.
Yeah, it's the experience. And who said that about selling coffee?
Me, Genesis.
Okay. I don't know you well enough yet to identify you by voice print, but as the semester goes on, I will. And so that's what they're doing is they're selling an experience kind of a thing. And we'll find some time to talk about Southwest or Starbucks in more detail, and just about the things that they're doing and why they're different and why other people can't match them. But I want to just have one other point here and then you can go home. People only buy value they perceive. So you can tell me all about how great your product is, but if I don't internalize that, it's no advantage at all. And so what we have to do is find a way to make people appreciate, understand, perceive the value of what we offer. And what happens is a problem with internet sales, the second line on this slide. Internet sales, you have to be very careful to create perceived value without the buyer being able to experience the actual product. So if you're planning to go into internet marketing, that's one of the things you got to think about. This was one of the things that Sears Roebuck did back a century ago, was when they put their catalogs together, they hired a bunch of illustrators to illustrate things like furniture in a setting like someone's living room, so that even though you couldn't touch that furniture and you were going to buy it through the mail, which is how they delivered it, you still could get a feel for what it might look like in your house. And of course, that's what we do today with some of these software programs that you can lay out the entire house with the furnishings in it online. But you've got to be able to create that perception of what it's going to be like. And that's all I'm going to show you on this. I like that last line though. The customer's perception is the customer's reality. Your relationship with your boss, how the boss is not going to be able to change your mind if your perception is different than his. So that's the thing that we always want to keep in mind in all relationships, that the perceptions are reality for individuals. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Heidi. Thank you, Leslie. Well done. Go out there and get some, try some things tonight. Really think through all the things that you need to do, and don't forget to do that quiz. I took a look, and I think only about half of you have done the quiz.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Dang.
And that's the purpose of that, is to help you, to give you ideas how to do how to work the game.
And we'll get results on that tonight, right? When everything closes, so we'll be able to get all the real answer.
10:59, isn't that when it's due? That you have to have the decisions in?
I
Yeah,
believe
I think
so.
11, but he's talking about the quiz, right, Blake?
Well, both. I've set them up.
Yeah, it's all due at the same time. I just want to make sure that I get the answers. I didn't do particularly well on it, but I want to know what are the answers were.
Gotcha.
It's really, it's graded, but it doesn't figure into your grade.
Yeah, I figured more important to know the answers than it was to get it all right.
Exactly.
It's just like life in that respect. So you'll have the quiz results or the game results about 15 or 20 minutes after after the witching hour. I enjoy this class because people talk.
Oh no, that's not good for other classes.
Huh?
So that's not good for your other classes. That's the high point.
Well, it is. That's what it's all about. You know, I could preach to you all day long, but I want to have you come back and ask me questions and challenge me, and I want to be able to challenge you. And that's how I can improve your thinking ability. And the better you can think, the more valuable you are for an employer.
Here's hoping.
And I want to see all of you be very successful in your careers. And I really mean that. Okay, kids. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
You too, Professor.